Good morning. Mr. J.Y. Pillay, the President of Singapore for today. Mr. S.R. Nathan, former President of Singapore. Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Tom McNanty, President of the Singapore University of Technology and Design, the Kui family, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are all aware that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew celebrated his 90th birthday on September 16. Two conferences were planned, one on September 16 on big ideas of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, and the other, which is held today, organized by the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities and the Centre for Liveable Cities, on Lee Kuan Yew and the fiscal transformation of Singapore. Together, these two conferences should capture the main achievements and contributions of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew to Singapore. My co-host of this conference, Mr. Koo Ting Chai, and I thank you all for being here with us. Although I'm trained as a political scientist, I have always believed that a historical perspective is essential for a nation to understand how it began, where it is now, and where and how it should go forward. I hope our discussions over the 2 days will help us take stock of ourselves as a people. We all associate Mr. Lee with shaping Singapore's state institutions and foreign policy. Less well known is how carefully he thought about the physical development of Singapore and how much he understood the issues of physical planning and has an interest in them. The Singapore in 1959 was very different from what we see around us today. When I was preparing for this conference, I came across a YouTube link which featured Charlie Munger on Lee Kuan Yew. Now, some of you may know that he is the right-hand man of Warren Buffett. He is brilliant in his own right. His book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, is one of the most widely sold books from a website year after year. And there is a book bearing the title, Seeking Wisdom, From Darwin to Munger. Now, Munger was speaking to the University of Michigan in 2010, and he told the students that the single most successful system in the world is Singapore. He encouraged the students to study the life and work of Lee Kuan Yew. You will be flabbergasted, he said. It is one of the most instructive political stories written in the history of mankind, better than Athens, quote unquote. Singaporeans often underestimate our own creativity, but our first generation leaders were very creative. They were radical. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew is radical in the original sense of the word. He goes to the root of things, and he is a visionary. Today, we will examine how he is a visionary in separate areas of our development, but more importantly, what he implemented. This conference has been supported by the Pontiac Land Group, the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities at SUTD, and the Centre for Liveable Cities. Thank you very much. Your gracious and generous hospitality and sponsorship is deeply appreciated. Now, I would like to take a few moments to say a few words about the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities, since we are so very new. The LKYCIC, which we say for short, is the second education and research institution in Singapore to be given permission by Mr. Lee to bear his name. It was established on September 1st, 2012, that's last year, and I'm the first chairman, having returned from Washington. We are one of 5 centers of excellence in the newly established Singapore University of Technology and Design. Our center is currently research-focused on the major issues of urbanization. We are interested to explore what an innovative city is and what it takes to be one, and specific ideas and experiments in technology, engineering, design, and innovative socio-economics. Although only a year old, we have launched research projects on Asian port cities, aging urbanism, an architectural study which will become a book on typologies of dense and green, and we have supported a smart energy grid study and smart transport study. Now, before I introduce our keynote speaker this morning, I have to mention a few housekeeping details for our speakers and panelists. To keep our program on schedule, we'll be using a bell to alert the speaker 5 minutes before his time is up. 1 ring. When time's up, it will be 2 rings. Now, for the respondents and panel members, panel speakers, there will be 1 ring 2 minutes before time is up, and 2 rings when it is fini. Now, it is my greatest pleasure to introduce our guest of honor, a man who really needs no introduction, a person who has been closely associated and is still closely associated with Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, and worked with him to implement many of his ideas for Singapore. He was present at the creation. And then he went on to do many things to serve Singapore in different capacities. He was a medical social worker, he was an officer in a trade union movement, he was a civil servant par excellence, and he was the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In fact, Mr. Nathan whipped the Foreign Service into shape, and that includes all of us here. He then went on to become the managing executive chairman of the Straits Times Press, and was twice ambassador to Malaysia and ambassador to the United States before finally being elected as the president of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, the former president of Singapore, Mr. S.R. Nathan. Mr. Nathan, please.
Acting President J.Y. Pillay, Excellencies, the Kui family, ladies and gentlemen. If someone living in Singapore in the 1950s could have entered a time machine and traveled to the Singapore of today, he would have found the transformation of this island literally unbelievable. Today's Singapore is the realization of a vision and the pragmatic response to a series of challenges that we faced. We faced a bleak future then. We were in the middle of a neighborhood that was not too sympathetic towards our emergence as a nearby independent nation. To survive, we had to create a Singapore, a cleaner and a more efficient Singapore with quality infrastructure and good living conditions. Over the past 50 years, the priorities were economic and social development to meet the aspirations of a young population. As Mr. Lee Kuan Yew said in 2007, and I quote, "Had we not differentiated Singapore in this way, Singapore would have languished and perished as a shrinking trading center instead of becoming the thriving business, banking, shipping, and aviation hub of today. A strong planning framework was put in place, within which our housing, our transport system, and our parks and gardens and others were developed and managed to their full potential. This physical transformation of Singapore is a story of foresight, of political will, and people working together to beat what seemed at that time despairing odds. It is a story of the challenges to find and implement the right policies, which has made our physical development and living conditions what it has become. But at its heart, it is about our story, how our hopes, our dreams, and our aspirations have been transformed. It is the story of our lives. Singapore is where we are today because of someone's single-minded purpose to make this country work, no matter how great the odds. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew embodies this more than anyone else here. It has been my privilege to have worked with and for him. He had extraordinary energy, deep convictions, and great determination. He was intensely obsessed with Singapore and its development. His mind was always at work towards that purpose. I have witnessed the grilling foreign visitors get from him for ideas that could be adapted to our situation in Singapore. I have seen foreign diplomats and experts exhausted after a meeting with him because he had pumped them dry of ideas and information. It is important to remember that the challenges Singapore faces now will never be static. They will be challenging all the time. Today, our past practice of top-down decision-making is now subject to a greater degree of public challenge. Today's young Singaporeans have their own aspirations, and among which, for example, are the availability of more green spaces, which they deem increasingly important. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew must take great credit for Singapore's transformation and the attractive greenery that surrounds us, rather than just raw concrete that we see elsewhere in the world. He was always a pragmatist with foresight. He knew, for example, that the transformation of Singapore into a garden city would attract investment and talent so necessary to help underpin our material prosperity. Indeed, the vision, the imagination of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and his fellow pioneers was that of a prosperous Singapore that people would be happy to call home, where they could build fulfilling lives for themselves and their children. It is the materialization of that vision that we celebrate today. Today's conference is also an opportunity to remember what we have achieved. From the presentation planned for the conference today, I hope we will also gain new insights into how all these changes were achieved. Hopefully, it will also highlight some of the issues and new challenges facing us today. We can also reflect on what we could have done differently and better, and how we can do better for the future. Most importantly, I hope this conference will reaffirm our determination and conviction to constantly reinvent Singapore. This conference is therefore a fitting celebration of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew's contribution to the transformation of Singapore. In concluding, I hope the deliberations you will follow will assist in the continuing dialogue needed between the government and people to arrive at the decisions that will help shape Singapore's physical form over the next 50 years. On that note, I wish you all a successful conference. Thank you.